So Mephisto finally showed up in the MCU after all these years, after all of the endless videos and theories and Reddit posts and people speculating Mephisto's going to show up in every, movie and show for the last 5 years. And when WandaVision came out, everybody was thinking, myself included, thought that Mephisto was going to show up, and then we thought he was going to show up in Doctor Strange 2, then people thought he was going to show up in Spider-Man's recent movie. Hell, there were even people I remember saying or thinking that he was going to show up in Thor: Love and Thunder, and he didn't show up. And of all the movies and shows for him to show up in, he shows up in Ironheart as Sacha Baron Cohen. None other than him. None other than Sacha Baron Cohen himself is Mephisto. And in Ironheart, which is that's a choice. I wouldn't have ever guessed that they would have chosen Ironheart, because to me, I don't know, I haven't seen Ironheart, but to me, Ironheart strikes me as more of like a street level show dealing with more grounded characters. I mean, I know there's fantasy and magic, but I don't know. It just seems like a character on the scale of Mephisto. I feel like should be saved for a Doctor Strange or a Scarlet Witch or some type of high level magic based project. I really don't know why they chose Ironheart for him to show up. But nonetheless, we officially have Mephisto. And it's funny, I think, well, there were people who theorized that he would show up in this from the trailers. And we knew before the show came out that they were going to deal with magic and there was going to be some type of interdimensional things going on. And so people thought that maybe Ghost Rider was going to show up and a few other characters. But there were a few people who thought the Mephisto might show up. But I think that's just because at this point, it's kind of a running joke where people think that Mephisto's going to show up in every fucking show. In every movie, there was a theory of Mephisto's going to show up here, or Mephisto's always been here. But now he is actually here, and I'm kind of mixed on it because on the one hand, it's cool that we have Mephisto, but I can't help but think that there's a solid possibility that Mephisto is just going to be either a throwaway villain that we don't see again, or B, a villain that we just don't see for 10 years and forget even exists in the MCU. Or three, he's going to show up and not really be as big of a deal as he should, because Mephisto, and I know the comics and the shows and the movies are very different entities, but Mephisto is one of the bigger villains and the bigger threats in the comics. And I feel like a villain of his scale should be dealing with like the actual Avengers. Like he should be a Doctor Doom, Thanos level type of villain, where like it's a culmination of films. In fact, there was a theory that for the last several years, going all the way back to, I remember back, actually, matter of fact, this theory was around when Infinity War came out, that there was the idea that Mephisto was the one behind everything that happened. He was the one behind Thanos getting the Infinity Stones, erasing half the universe. He was pretty much every bad thing that's happened on the ground or cosmic scale was because of Mephisto, and that he was eventually going to show up at the end of one phase and reveal himself as being the ultimate puppet master. Almost like that. I'm sure people who are Naruto fans, they've seen that meme of like how it's the Akatsuki. Then it's like layered of like the Akatsuki are controlling each other. Then you got Obito controlling the Akatsuki. Then you got Madara controlling Obito and the Akatsuki. Then you got Zetsu. Then you got Kage. It's just like a fucking endless, just one person after another controlling the other one. And so people kind of thought that was going to be the case with Mephisto, but that didn't turn out to be true. And so now that he's officially established, I don't really know if they're going to really be able to do much of him, because like I said, he should be such a big deal and such a big threat. But seeing how because Marvel's had this problem really since Endgame of introducing characters in post-credit scenes and at the end of shows and movies and just never doing anything with it. I mean, the Eternals, for example. In the Eternals, Arishem shows up at the end of that film and says that he's going to return to judge Earth because the Eternals didn't allow for the new Celestial to be born. So Arishem says he's going to return to judge Earth for that. When's that going to happen? Who the fuck knows, if ever. And then in that same movie, Thanos' brother, Star Fox, and Pip the Troll show up. Don't know when they're ever going to show up again. We haven't seen them again. Then at the end of Thor: Love and Thunder, Hercules is supposed to be going after Thor. Who the hell knows when Thor's going to show up again? And who knows when Hercules is going to show up again? And then at the end of Thor: Love and Thunder, Gore's daughter is off with Thor. Well, when is she going to show up again? Then you got other characters like America Chavez, who showed up in Doctor Strange 2. She hasn't been seen since then. When is she going to show up again? Like, there's so many characters that Marvel just introduce and just never address or never bring back again. And I feel like with Mephisto, that's a good possibility because it seems to me this is kind of the worst time to introduce Mephisto because, assuming there's no delays, but the next big phase is going to be Secret Wars and Doomsday. So for the next few years, Doomsday is going to be the main villain. Then you got Secret Wars. And you could say that Mephisto might factor into Secret Wars or he might factor into Doomsday, but I don't think so. I think both of those films are going to have so much going on, so many characters, so many subplots, so many villains, so much to set up. I really don't think we're going to have the time to actually establish Mephisto as an actual villain. He might show up as a cameo, he might be mentioned, but I really don't see him actually being a prominent character in either of those projects. And then we really don't know what Marvel's going to do post Secret Wars and Doomsday, but I can't really imagine that Mephisto's probably going to be that big of a player going forward. I mean, Dormammu, who Riri mistakes Mephisto for in the show, we've only seen him once. Like, he's only been in one movie, and that's been, I think, almost a decade now, and we haven't seen Dormammu. And Mephisto, it kind of implies that he's as strong, if not stronger, than Dormammu. He pretty much laughs at the fact that Riri assumes that he's Dormammu. So we're assuming by that he is as strong, if not stronger, than Dormammu. So it has been confirmed that he is a very powerful being. Like, we're talking about a guy on the scale that, like, you need someone like with Doctor Strange with the Infinity Stones to actually deal with. So he's a pretty powerful character. He's not just like a random street level vulture, random character that you can have anyone deal with. So he's definitely a big deal. But I don't know. I feel like at this point it's just a little bit too late for Mephisto, because if he had shown up in WandaVision, I think that would have worked a lot more. There was a few things that could have worked better. If they had Mephisto and Doctor Strange and Wanda, get rid of Agatha. You really don't need her there. Just completely cut out the whole Agatha aspect. That was just useless. Cut that out, and if you had introduced him in that movie or that show, and you had Doctor Strange and Wanda as like the core cast of characters, and then from WandaVision, you keep building on that, then you had Mephisto as a main villain in Doctor Strange 2, and you keep having him show up in other shows and movies from that point. And then you could have it to where it's like almost like a Loki situation where he's there, he's a prominent force, but he's like in the background, where he's established, we know he's there, he's done a lot of stuff. And we know that even though he's not showing up right now, that he's in the background. He's waiting. He's waiting for the right time, or he has plans in motion, and he's aware of like Doom and before he got canceled, King and all the other forces out there, and even Loki with the TVA and all that. And so he has like almost like a chess move where he's like doing this like on a chess type of system where he's methodically waiting, and he is waiting for the right time, and he knows when to kind of pull back and when not to. That would have been kind of cool. But at this point, I feel like Mephisto probably is just going to be a one and done villain, because I really don't know when he might show up again. He could maybe show up in Doctor Strange 3, but I don't even know when Doctor Strange 3 is going to show up or when that's going to happen. He could show up in, I don't know, maybe like a Wiccan type show or like an Agatha type spinoff, because that's kind of the other thing is, since he's supposed to be as powerful as he is, and he's supposed to be this really powerful magic user, it's kind of hard to have him just slot it in. You can't really put him with just a lot of characters. I mean, you could have him to show up and just try to make deals and things like that, but you can't really have a conflict with, like, for example, I don't know, Hawkeye or Kate Bishop or like a a normal character because he's just so powerful. It would be no sticks. It's like, well, he just should kill this character without any problem. So yeah, I don't know how that's gonna go, but it's curious that they got Sacha Baron Cohen because there was actually a rumor before Ironheart came out that he was actually gonna be cast or that he was cast as Mephisto, and I didn't really put much credence in that because I didn't really see Sacha Baron Cohen being the Mephisto type of actor. But then again, I mean, other actors have played roles that people would have thought before they weren't really fit for. So, and from what I've seen, I've only seen that that end credit where he's talking to Riri, but he seemed pretty good in the role. He seemed to fit it pretty good. So I hope that they do more with him. I'm curious to see when he'll show up again, but I really don't. I don't know. I feel like this is just kind of a waste of a good actor and a waste of a good character, and a show that. Again, I can't speak to the quality of the show because I haven't seen the full show. But in a show like Ironheart, I feel like you should have introduced him in a big, post credit scene of a movie instead of a show. But with that said, not much else to say really about this. I just want to give my few thoughts about this. So, yeah, with that said, I think I'm going to call the day here. Let me know what you guys think below about if you're interested or if you're not, what you think about Sacha Baron Cohen as Mephisto. But with that said, I'm going to call the day here, and I will see you guys later.